It's Benzinga, bringing Wall Street to Main Street.
The Trump administration set new tariff rates in letters to trading partners, warning of higher levies on transshipped goods, according to Barron's. U.S. announced a 20% tariff on Vietnamese exports and 40% on transshipped goods, but key details remain unclear, including what qualifies as transshipment and how it will be enforced. Analysts say the lack of formal documentation or clarity on enforcement mechanisms has generated confusion on both sides. Questions remain over how the administration defines transshipment and how it intends to monitor and enforce the rule, especially as supply chains adapt to pressure and reduce reliance on China. Experts warn that altering rules of origin could complicate global trade, increase costs for companies, and amplify the inflationary effects of tariffs. President Trump announced a 50% tariff on all copper imports starting August 1st, citing national security concerns over America's reliance on foreign copper, according to Benzinga. The administration warned of these risks as early as February, pointing to U.S. dependence on overseas mining, smelting, and refining, sectors dominated by a single foreign player. The U.S. lacks refining capacity and remains a net importer despite holding domestic reserves. Copper imports surged ahead of the tariff, with 461,000 tons brought in between January and April, up 232,000 tons from last year. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick confirmed the tariff's timeline, calling copper finished and the levy likely to take effect August 1st. President Donald Trump escalated his trade war Wednesday by threatening Brazil with a 50% tariff on U.S.-bound exports starting August 1st, according to Reuters. Trump raised Brazil's tariff in a letter to President Lula, expressing anger over the trial of former President Jair Bolsonaro. The president also accused Brazil of undermining free elections and speech and ordered an investigation into trade practices over alleged censorship of U.S. social media. Brazil is the 15th largest U.S. trading partner, with $92 billion in two-way trade and a $7.4 billion U.S. trade surplus in 2024. Trump administration pledged 90 deals in 90 days after April tariff hikes, but has secured only 2 agreements so far with Britain and Vietnam. It says a deal with India is near. The reconciliation package signed into law by President Donald Trump includes the largest cut to SNAP in U.S. history, according to CNBC. The law slashes the program by 20%, or $186 billion, through 2034, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Research from the nonpartisan Urban Institute found that 22.3 million families will lose some or all of their food assistance, with 5.3 million losing at least $25 per month, and many averaging $146 monthly cut. Legislation adds stricter work requirements for older adults, parents, and veterans, risking loss of benefits due to administrative hurdles. Experts warn that families can fall off the rolls for failing to recertify or comply with new paperwork, even if their eligibility hasn't changed. Multiple Secret Service officials have been placed on leave following last year's assassination attempt on Donald Trump during his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, according to NBC News. Among those sidelined is a special agent in charge of the Pittsburgh field office, which handled coordination with local law enforcement. The total number of officials placed on leave is still unclear and could increase as the agency continues its internal review. Spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said any confirmed policy violations will be reviewed for possible disciplinary action, but declined further comment due to the personal nature of the matter. President Trump is weighing an unprecedented move to name a shadow chair of the Federal Reserve out of Jerome Powell's May 2026 departure in an attempt to pressure the central bank into steep interest rate cuts, according to CNBC. The move raises concerns about the Fed's independence and the credibility of its future leadership, with economists warning of reputational risks for any nominee and market confusion if Trump installs an alternative monetary voice while Powell remains in office. Trump is linking rate cuts to lowering the government's debt costs, a demand Fed leaders have consistently rejected. Analysts say naming a chair early is not uncommon, but positioning one to actively contradict Powell would destabilize investor expectations. Markets expect a rate cut in September, but Trump's tactics could complicate the Fed's path forward. The Federal Reserve released minutes from its June meeting on Wednesday, according to Reuters. The minutes revealed limited support among officials for a July interest rate cut, despite pressure from President Donald Trump. Most Fed officials expect rate cuts later this year, but see tariff-related price shocks as modest and reject Trump's push for steep, immediate reductions. Several Fed officials believe current rates are near neutral, with even the most dovish forecasting less than 1 percentage point in cuts this year and in 2026. Despite uncertainty over tariff-driven inflation, the Fed minutes signal no urgency to cut rates soon, according to BMO economist Priscilla Thigamorthi. Senator Bernie Moreno is expanding his campaign to pressure Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to resign, according to Axios. During a closed-door GOP lunch Wednesday, the Republican from Ohio argued that Powell's refusal to cut rates has increased the national deficit by $400 billion annually. Moreno cited high interest rates and claims that Powell has misread inflation and hindered Trump's economic agenda. Moreno sits on the Senate Banking Committee, wants to lay the groundwork for confirming Trump's future nominee as Powell's term ends in May 2026. Moreno's letter to Powell accused him of undermining economic recovery and called for his immediate resignation. Critics also point to the Fed's $2.5 billion renovation budget, while Trump and his allies claim powell moved faster on rate cuts under Biden. Nvidia briefly surpassed a $4 trillion market cap on Wednesday before closing at $3.97 trillion, according to CNBC. Chip became the world's most valuable company, surpassing Microsoft and Apple, and is the first to reach a $4 trillion market value during trading. California-based company has gained more than 15% in the past month and 22% year-to-date. Nvidia dominates the generative AI hardware space with soaring demand since ChatGPT's launch, boosting its valuation more than 15-fold in 5 years. Despite U.S. chip restrictions to China costing an estimated $8 billion in sale, CEO Jensen Huang said the $50 billion China market is now effectively closed to U.S. firms. Nvidia has rebounded from earlier fears that China's DeepSeek AI model could reduce demand for GPUs.
For all things money, visit Benzinga.com.